Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Planet X News. It is June 1st, 2017, and we have our physicist with us today. And, I'd say maybe a couple of days ago, we were talking deeply about the chemtrail situation that basically has made its way around the world for many, many years. It also started out as a big conspiracy. People didn't believe that world governments were basically spraying poison in our skies. And this big conspiracy has made its way around the world time and time again. And I'm sure everyone listening to this live stream today, I'm sure you've all seen chemtrails, the tic-tac-toe signs, the crazy designs of clouds in your skies. And they're all in a timely pattern to cover up the sun. Is it geoengineering? Or are they trying to hide something up there near the sun? But from what we found out, they've been doing this for a long, long time, possibly longer than some of us that have been on this earth. And the doctor has taken her time to write a report, and we're going to check out her findings. And you're probably going to find a lot of this information kind of scary. Some of it you may know about, some of it you may not know about. But all I know is that the substances that they are spraying in our skies do not benefit any living human being, plant or animal. It's actually very detrimental to our well-being. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our rogue physicist. That's the nickname that we've given her. And we've even given her a brand new logo avatar to use. Good morning, doctor. How are you?
Good morning, Scott. I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I'm doing pretty good. So what do you think about your new avatar, the rogue physicist?
I like it. Thank you for making it for me.
Yeah, it's pretty it's pretty neat. We kind of used a little bit of the NASA symbol.
Uh-huh.
And it looks pretty good. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and make sure our live chat is going just well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to say thank you to Heidi for moderating our live chat. I don't foresee any problems with the little trolls running around in there, but Heidi will take care of it if any of them pop in and want to try to disrupt anything that's going on. Mm-hmm. But so doctor, whenever you started writing your article on the chemtrails, and I'm sure that you've seen these chemtrails before. Where you live, have you seen a lot of chemtrailing over the years?
Not for that many years, actually. I think in South Africa they started later than in other parts of the world. But definitely they are doing it here. Probably not as much as in the US. And now they are using that very thin, hazy kind of aerosols. So we see the planes flying at very high altitudes, and they leave a short trail. And then it turns into this very pale, a blue sky, very hazy. That's what they're doing here.
Yeah, I've noticed a big difference in the, well, not a difference in the patterns that they produce. But I did notice last year, whenever I was trying to take photographs every day, trying to get some sunset photographs from a specific point, and I kind of went to a higher elevated area where I didn't have anything obstructing my view. And I noticed immediately that, you know, they would start this chemtrailing, I would say like about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. sometimes 4, but it was directly in front of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
That was their main goal, to block out that sun.
That's right. Yeah.
Because I would look facing due west, looking at the sun, and that would be the only direction that the chemtrails were produced. If I looked behind me, due east, I wouldn't see anything but blue skies. That's it. So, I mean, I came to an early conclusion many, many years ago that they were definitely trying to hide something.
Yes.
There would be no purpose to do this. And what were they spraying? And I've had my own investigations over the years into chemtrails. Matter of fact, about 5 years ago, I was publicizing a lot of this chemtrail information and photographs and daily photographs that I was taking. I was publicizing this on Facebook, and they suspended my Facebook page for 30 days. Then I stopped talking about it on Facebook. And then a few months later, I decided to continue. And they suspended my Facebook page again for 30 days. Goodness. For just showing pictures of clouds. Yeah. But what I noticed last year is that these cloud patterns that were forming, they tended to be much thicker and darker. But this year, I started noticing in January that whatever they were spraying seemed to be a different compound. It seemed to be, well, how could I say? I'll just use the terminology. It seemed to be a lighter compound that dispersed very quickly, didn't form clouds, but it formed that haziness that just covers the entire sky. And the chemtrails, they just go away. They don't form the clouds, but they do cover the entire blue sky. So that's what we were just talking about, and that's what you were referring to as far as what they're doing now.
That's right.
This year. Yeah, definitely something to look into. Well, what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the report that the doctor's written. If you just give me a second, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And we will get right into this. Okay, doctor, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Scott.
Okay, so the doctor's written this report, and it's not going to be a really, really long, lengthy report because, ladies and gentlemen, we can be here for days discussing this so-called geoengineering and what they're doing in our skies up above. The title for her report is "The Real Purpose of Chemtrail Spraying and How It Is Destroying the Planet." And again, this was just written a few days ago, and we've both been very, very busy with other things going on right now. But I'm going to turn everything over to the doctor, and she's going to start going over this report on these chemtrails. And again, Doc, whenever you need me to just pan down, just let me know.
Okay, thank you, Scott. All right, so we start. The first image shows a plane, of course, leaving the white trail behind that I'm sure most people know that are watching this program. They've seen it. High altitude flying plane and spreading that white trail, which a lot of people call chemtrails. It's definitely not a contrail because the planes in many years ago used to leave a little white thin line that would just disappear. And that was called a contrail. And this doesn't disappear. This turns into thick clouds. So there are reports that this was started in 1977, but they were just experimenting in small areas. And however, in 1997, that's when the large-scale spraying started. But 1997 means they've been doing it for 20 years. And that has taken a heavy toll on our planet. And that's what I'm going to talk about. But there are basically 4 purposes that I could see for the chemtrailing. One of them is hiding objects, but they have others. Okay, so we can scroll down a little bit. So the elements found in these aerosols are mainly aluminum and barium, but includes other things called chaff, which is fiberglass coated in nanoparticle aluminum, and there's radioactive thorium, cadmium, chromium, nickel, and those are the heavy metals. And then there's desiccated blood, mold spores, yellow fungal mycotoxins, ethylene dibromide, and polymer fibers, such as fluoropolymers. So it's quite a concoction, and basically all of it is poisonous. Barium is known to induce heart disease. I know you say, I say aluminium, and you say
Aluminum.
aluminum. Sorry, I don't know if I can remember that.
Well, listen,
Okay.
if you come here to the United States and you
Yes.
pronounce aluminum that way, they will
Yes.
definitely not know what you're talking about. But you have plenty of time to practice your American English,
Sorry.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. Aluminum. Right. I'll try to remember. So it induces brain disease. So aluminum is a known cause of dementia, which is occurring at younger and younger ages. And the symptoms are emotional outbursts, paranoia, forgetfulness, memory loss, speech incoherence, irritability, diminished alertness, changes in personality, and poor judgment.
Well, that sounds like the United States. That sounds
well, that may be.
That sounds exactly like the United States. I mean,
Yes.
you know, I mean, my grandfather, he was a very strong character.
Mhm.
33
Yeah.
years in the U.S. military, World War II, shot, Korea, foot blown off. You know, he
Yeah.
spent 33 years in the military. That man was a solid piece of steel. But then later, after he retired, he had absolutely no health problems, nothing. And then he started coming down with the symptoms of dementia, Alzheimer's,
Yes.
and Parkinson's disease, all at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
And then, you know, I mean, he hung on. He hung on there to the very end. And, you know, never took medications or anything of that nature. But, you know, thinking about all of the things, the symptoms that you just mentioned, you know, and I made the joke about the United States and blah, blah, blah. But this all kind of flows into the dumbing down of a nation.
Right.
The dumbing down of a nation to make them mentally weak and unstable.
That's right.
I mean, and I see this, all of these symptoms, I see this occurring in children. You know, the United States is so far behind academically for children in schools than many other nations. This has been publicized many times over the years. And I could only imagine for little children, kids, teenagers, young adults, people working outside every single day of their life. And this is what we are breathing. Now, whenever you talked about the barium, I know that this is an awful substance. Aluminum has definitely been linked to Alzheimer's.
That's right.
But, you know, speaking about, I don't know, what did you just hear that crazy signal?
I did, but my cell phone is off, so it's not mine.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was kind of weird.
it was.
But well, I figured, hey, you never know. We might start having some technical difficulties talking about chemtrails. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm sure.
each and every time, ladies and gentlemen, each and every time, the doctors start discussing UFOs,
Hmm.
we immediately get cut off of our video conference. That
Yeah.
is a fact. They've done it to us 4 or 5 or 6 times. They've
Hmm.
just cut us off completely when we start talking about UFOs. But getting back to this information, the diminished alertness, irritability,
Yes.
speech incoherentness,
Hmm.
memory loss,
Yes.
changes in your personality, poor judgment.
Hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can see these symptoms flowing across our country, the United States. I can't speak for other countries, but I can see these things happening over the years. And some of these other toxins that they're using, I just don't understand. What the hell are they doing? What are they doing?
I think they're doing it on purpose, Scott.
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt. When you put that many planes in the air, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day around the world now, yeah, they're doing it. They're definitely doing it on purpose. What do you think the reason for this this fluoride? Because I've heard so much about this fluoride issue. What do you
Yes,
think
the
about it?
fluoride does a bit of the same that the aluminum does. So they are using fluoropolymers because they come as hydrophilic formulations, so they can be mixed with water and spread through aerosols. So, and they form thin films in the atmosphere. That's where those so-called rainbow clouds come from, iridescent clouds. And I've written an article before a few months ago how it's produced by thin film diffraction. But now the research on fluoride definitely shows that it's neurotoxic. It produces lower IQs and learning disabilities in children. And it produces difficulties in following social norms. In other words, it leads to criminal behavior. And it was used by the Germans and the Soviets both. They added it to the drinking water of prisoners of war in order to make them docile and stupid. So they use sodium fluoride. That's the same stuff that they're adding to the water supply. So we know immediately what they are trying to do. They're trying to make the population stupid and docile. And but people nowadays don't want to drink the water. So I guess they found another way of administering it, and that's through the chemtrails.
Well, if whenever I think of fluoride, I immediately, go back to my childhood, and I think of the dentist. I think of toothpaste. Then I'm starting to think, oh wow, now I know why I never liked the dentist. Thank God I've always had good teeth, but I've never liked the dentist, and now I know why. Because they were pushing fluoride.
Yeah.
And now we see what fluoride really is.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't the fluoride laced in our water?
That's right.
I believe in the United States, I believe fluoride was laced in city water. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost 100%.
Yeah, most of the cities in the US do put fluoride in their water. We're very fortunate in South Africa that they tried and there was a court case and it was blocked. So we don't have fluoride in our water here. So that's one of the fortunate things about this country.
Now, moving on to the next piece of your article here. I read this, and this was just very, very interesting.
Yes.
Going back to World War II?
Yes, World War II. The Germans and the Soviets both were using sodium fluoride, and they were putting it into the water for the prisoners of war because they didn't want them turning on them, I suppose. So that makes them stupid and docile. Guess what the elite, the powers that be want nowadays? They don't want, they are very, this is what they're most afraid of the population turning on them. And so this is the real reason why the fluoride. It's because they're afraid of us. Yes.
And then moving down into the second paragraph, talking about the concentrations of the particles in the air that we breathe.
That's right. So it produces basically respiratory diseases like asthma and lung infections, I guess. And then radioactive thorium, because it's radioactive, it causes cancer, right? And then most of the, so the toxic brew, it's not just thorium, all those heavy metals are very toxic to every living organism. So to me, it seems that they are trying to kill most of the Earth's population, human and animal. And the animals are much more affected than we are because they're always outside. We have houses to live in. But we still end up ingesting a lot of these particles because they fall on the food crops and we eat the food. So, and we breathe in the air. So here we see in this picture, so chemtrailing, the technical word is geoengineering. Because what it does is, it is an attempt to change the Earth's atmosphere. So that's what it does. And we, of course, live on the Earth's surface, so we need that air. So we end up breathing it all in. So here we see the clouds that the geoengineering aerosols form, and they mainly in front of the sun. So that tells you, as you were mentioning before, that one of the purposes is to hide the objects that we now know are around the sun. And I know that a lot of people that do research on Planet X, they believe that there's a brown dwarf star coming in, it will reach perihelion, and so on. But what I have discovered is quite different from that. These objects are here, they've been here for a long time. They are not just coming in, or there are probably many still coming in. They have come in. They have come in right up to the sun, and they are orbiting the sun. So this is how my own research has led me to this. It's different from what other people that have been researching this subject have been saying for a while. So, yes. So I believe these.
You think that I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just looking at this picture, and it's bringing back so many memories of when I used to document these chemtrails. So, I mean, looking at this, there's a direct correlation with their patterns, their flight patterns, the grid patterns that they produce. I mean, when you look at it, if you're going to do the sky, do the whole sky.
Exactly.
But they make the grid pattern directly in front of the sun. No matter where you go. I've talked to people all over the world about the chemtrailing. What they're doing right now, I've been getting a lot of emails from my subscribers over in the UK. I just got an email from a few people living in Manchester, England, showing me these dreaded chemtrails. They look just as bad as the photograph that you see on your screen right now.
That's right.
And you can't deny it. You know, and many times I've said to friends and family members, you know, whenever I'm over at their house or whatever, and I say, wow, look at that chemtrailing. They're like, what? Look at the sky. Oh, yeah, the clouds. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. These substances got to you. You're dumbed down already. There's no hope for you.
Yeah, there's no way you can think that this is natural. I mean, straight lines forming a grid pattern is not normal. Nature does not do this. So these are definitely artificial. And anybody who thinks they are natural, I guess people eventually get so used to it that they don't even notice it anymore. But
Well,
those
that
that
is
are
true.
awake do.
That is true. People around the world, I mean, they are just so used to seeing this now that they just really don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've been analyzing over the years is I'm always watching weather. Not only do I watch my local weather, I watch weather around the world. But one thing that I do is I watch my local weather. And the weatherman says, today it's going to be a crisp, clear, sunny day. Not partly cloudy, not partly sunny, a crystal clear day.
Yeah.
And what I've done is I've waited for them to produce the heavy chemtrail at 4 or 5 o'clock, and then I watch the 6 o'clock news. And when the weatherman comes on at 6 o'clock and he starts going through his detailed forecast, these chemtrails, this cloud cover, does not show up on their radar or their Doppler, whatever they use.
Wow.
It does not show up. It still shows that you have a clear sky.
Oh my goodness.
But yet you don't.
Mm.
You have a picture of what you're looking at on your screen right now.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would have
That's
to say that is some form of engineering when these chemtrails, they are able to trick technology that the weatherman uses.
That's right.
So what
Yes,
happened? What happened to my crystal clear day? Where the hell is it? It's being hidden. It's being hidden by this grid pattern that they produce in our skies.
Yes. And the reason why it may not show up on normal radar as if it was water vapor is these aluminum particles, they can actually be used to enhance cloaking or on spacecraft. So it could be that they're just not visible on radar. Because lower down, I talk a little bit. I just mentioned that they can be used for cloaking. So now what happens is the ozone layer and how this affects the ozone layer. Now, life on Earth is dependent on the ozone layer because the sun produces UV radiation. And the most energetic of the UV radiation it produces is called UVC radiation. And that UVC radiation is very damaging to living organisms. And basically what it does is it destroys DNA. So we can see there the ozone layer is a part of the atmosphere between the stratosphere and the troposphere. And it's a thin layer, and it's not just ozone. And ozone is a 3 oxygen molecule. And I'll show you just now. And it doesn't block all of the UVC radiation. And that is, if it's not depleted, it will block 97 to 99%. And it acts as a filter because it absorbs the UVC photons. Now, that layer has 10 parts per million of ozone, whilst the rest of the atmosphere only has 0.3 parts per million. So you can see it's mainly just normal oxygen with 10 parts per million ozone. So what happens is if some UVC has always been able to get to the surface. And of course, it will damage DNA in the skin and in the eyes. but every organism has DNA repair mechanism, so it is able to cope with some amount of DNA damage. But nowadays, what has happened is the chemtrailing has put particles, small particles in the atmosphere that deplete the ozone. And I actually lower down, I explain how it works. And the way you know that the ozone layer has been depleted over where you live is if you go out in the sun and you immediately feel like your face is burning. That means that your skin is being hit by UVC radiation, and your skin is feeling the damage almost immediately. I mean, I felt it just the other day. I was somewhere waiting for my car to be fixed. I was walking outside. There was a bit of sun, and I was fully clothed, but I just turned my back to the sun, and some of it fell on my neck, and I could immediately feel that my neck was starting to burn. And that's a sign that the ozone layer has been depleted over this area, and the UVC radiation is coming through in large amounts, and it's causing damage almost immediately. Your body tells you. Okay, so there I explain. So the DNA has a resonant frequency, which is 270 nanometers. And the UVC radiation is in that range. So it produces radiation in that range. So that's why it just destroys DNA. Right, so ozone is O3, O little 3, which means 3 oxygen atoms bonded together, whilst normal oxygen is just 2 oxygens. So what happens is, and we can see it here in the diagram. So this is the slow reaction. That is a UV photon. It could be a UVC photon. These are the ones we're most interested in because they cause the most damage. The UVB is a lower energy photon, and that usually leads to our skin tanning. So it's not that damage. It can cause damage as well if we get too much of it, but it's mainly the UVC that we have to watch out for. So this is the slow reaction, and this leads to the production of ozone. But it's slow, so it happens slowly, so it doesn't absorb many UV photons, because the UV photon comes in from the sun, comes into the ozone layer, and hits a normal oxygen molecule, and it splits it. So the energy from the photon goes into splitting the oxygen molecule, the normal oxygen. So in that way, the UV photon is absorbed, and it splits it into 2 single oxygens, and each of those single oxygens then combine with 1 oxygen molecule. And that leads to 2 ozone molecules being formed. So that's how ozone, but not much of it, it's formed slowly because this is a slow reaction, and so it doesn't happen very often. And therefore, not many ozone molecules are produced this way. All right, then we can scroll down a little bit. All right, so this is the fast reaction. This is the real reaction in the ozone layer that leads to the absorption of large amounts of UVC photons. And it's a fast reaction, so it happens very quickly. So the UV photon comes in and splits a single oxygen molecule from the ozone molecule. So it forms 1 single oxygen and 1 oxygen molecule with the 2 oxygens. Then the single oxygen combines with another oxygen molecule, and it forms another ozone molecule. So this happens very quick, and you can see from this reaction, 1 ozone molecule is destroyed, and almost immediately another ozone molecule is formed. So you don't get depletion. You basically get the same number, the same concentration in the ozone layer. That's how it's designed to work. But when you put particles in the atmosphere, so if we scroll a bit further down, we can see that. So the particles that can do this, it's not just aluminum. Well, I use aluminum as one of the examples, and it's the most abundant in the chemtrail aerosols. But sulfur, say from volcanic eruptions, also get into the atmosphere, and it also will cause depletion of ozone, because then the sulfur combines with oxygen molecules after it's been split from the ozone molecule. And so sulfur dioxide would be formed instead of ozone. But the example I have here in figure 6 is for aluminum. So instead of getting ozone, what is formed if there's aluminum in the atmosphere is aluminum oxide. And you see here, so 3 ozone molecules get hit by UVC photons, which splits them into oxygen molecules and a single oxygen. So you need 3 single oxygens, then combine with 2 aluminum atoms, and what you get is the aluminum oxide plus 3 normal oxygen molecules. So what happened was those 3 ozone molecules didn't turn into another 3 ozone molecules. In fact, so that ozone was lost. So you can imagine what's going to happen over the course of 20 years of this happening, because of all the aluminum that has been placed in the atmosphere. And this is why we get a thinner and thinner layer of ozone, less and less concentration, less and less absorption of UVC radiation, and that leads to what's called ozone layers, where the certain layers in the atmosphere over certain parts of the world, there is just no ozone there at all, and the UVC radiation comes right through. And for some years, there's been some over the North and the South Pole, but the most dangerous, and if we scroll down a little bit, is over Australia. It's been known that Australia has had an ozone layer for quite some time. So, and what happens if you living in an area like that is you will feel the burning sensations. You may feel very tired because now your body is dealing with excessive DNA damage, and it's trying to fix the problem. So it assigns more resources to ozone, to what the ozone is causing in the ozone depletion is causing in the body. And what it will do as well is it affects plants and animals and insects. So one of the things you may notice is that there are very few insects, or you may notice that vegetables are not growing properly. And I heard that there are certain cities in Australia where people were feeling extremely tired over the summer months, and that the vegetables were not growing or the plants were not producing fruit. And that's definitely a sign that the ozone hole over Australia is getting worse.
Yes, I've heard the same. I've heard the same identical thing. And last year in the United States, and we talked about this last year in the United States, excuse me, I started noticing the size of vegetables that were being sold in the stores.
Yes.
So, as a child, a head of lettuce was pretty big. A head of cabbage was pretty big. So now when you go to the grocery store and you pick up a head of cabbage, it could be the size of a grapefruit, maybe a little bit bigger.
Sure.
But I've noticed the drop in sizes of the vegetables, because I love romaine lettuce.
Yes.
So when I go and I buy, packages of romaine lettuce, there's almost nothing there. It's just about enough for one large salad. And when I was in the restaurant business, I used to get all of my vegetables from an Amish farm. And I noticed over a period of a year, the difference in the size of the vegetables that was being brought to my restaurant, because I wanted everything fresh.
Yes.
Now, there were certain vegetables, excuse me, that were basically, I would say unharmed, like onions. Onions just seemed to be very large, no problem. But when it came to the lettuce, or like the plants, the vegetables that grow above ground, they were just very, very small. And you can see how depleted these vegetables were. And I really didn't put the two and two together until we spoke with Alan and you started researching this and started putting all of this together.
That's right.
These are the reasons why. And then, you know, whenever you start talking about the physical way that you feel, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know, everybody has a bad day, you know, where you just don't feel right. But when you go through an entire season and you feel like crap, you feel run down, you have aches and pains and joint pain and muscle pain and things affecting your mental state. These are all of the things that we've been researching and finding out that have been happening in a lot of different countries around the world who have this ozone depletion. And I'm going to make a statement right now. Over the years, when you talk about ozone, they blame the depletion of the Earth's ozone on man. Okay, well now, after listening to more than half of the doctor's report, yes, it is man that is causing the depletion of the ozone, but not the common man, the mad scientists that are concocting these cocktails that they're spraying in our atmosphere for all of these years. It is their fault, not this man. Not this man. Yes, the man that they refer to in their broad statement. Oh, man is the cause. Man is the cause. Yeah, you're damn right, man is the cause. But it's the men behind the geoengineering and the science. The doctor just clearly showed you the molecular makeup of this mad science geoengineering. Boy, this really, really disgusts me.
That's right. It is.
Yeah. You could go ahead and go on. I could feel my blood pressure skyrocketing right now.
And believe me, Scott, it's going to get even worse. Well, I mean, the ozone depletion, you realize, will lead to the end of all life on Earth. Because every animal eventually will not be able to cope with the DNA, every organism with the DNA damage that it causes. It's already destroying large amounts of coral and plankton. So the coral, there was a report, a BBC report on November 28, 2016, which talked about the extensive damage to Australia's coral reef in the northern part of the continent, 67% destruction, which is astounding. And they usually attribute it to warming oceans, but that's not the real problem. The real problem is the UVC radiation that causes damage in the organism that produces the coral. And so that's the real cause. I mean, slightly warmer oceans is not going to do this. They actually, I think, prefer certain warmer areas. So it's the UVC. It's also destroying plankton, because plankton there are two parts of plankton. There's zooplankton, which is the animal part, it's small animals and organisms, and there's the phytoplankton, which is the animal part. Both have DNA. Both are therefore destroyed by UVC radiation. And if it gets depleted, it affects all sea life, because what happens is the little fish, or sometimes big whales, actually eat plankton. But usually little fish eat the plankton, and then the little fish are eaten by bigger fish, and so on. So it supplies the whole food chain in the ocean. And the phytoplankton produces 50% of the Earth's oxygen supply through the carbon cycle. So it absorbs carbon dioxide and gives off oxygen like normal plants. And 50% of the Earth's oxygen supply is produced in this way. So you can imagine what will happen if we lose all our plankton, which would include our phytoplankton. So life on Earth would get very difficult. We'd have less oxygen. We would have just about no. Well, there would be no fish in the sea. They would all die. The oceans would die. And eventually all life on Earth would die, because don't forget, we need oxygen. And our oxygen supply might drop to be below what can support animal life. Plus, we ourselves keep getting DNA damage, and the food crops that we eat are getting DNA damage. And if they have enough DNA damage, so what you get first is they get smaller, because they too have DNA fixing techniques, but eventually they cannot cope. So if our bodies cannot cope, it can lead to cancer. It can lead to immune system failure, and eventually to death. So it harms us in all of these ways, our own bodies and the food that we need to survive.
So this is basically just destroying the entire ecosystem of our entire planet.
That's right. That's right. This is what it's doing.
Yeah, this really does. This really does make my blood boil, because, you know, I don't see any legitimate reason that has been publicly told to us that this geoengineering needs to be conducted to sustain life on this planet. And if you think about it, it's not them trying to sustain life. It's like they're trying to destroy it.
That's right. They are. This is the thing. This is the conclusion I came to, Scott, is they are purposely trying to reduce the Earth's population on purpose. And the reason still seems to me to be that they are afraid of us. So they want less of us to cope with.
Well, like I have said many times before in a lot of my videos, talking about your statement just now. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we do outnumber them. We outnumber the government organizations around the world. We outnumber all of their militaries, all of the politicians, all of the people in charge. We outnumber them. So if you think about it, what a better way to fight your enemy. I guess that's what they think we are, their enemy. So if you decrease the population of your enemy through food, water, the air that they breathe, systematically over a period of time, and in the meantime, you're trying to cover up multiple substellar objects, such as what we refer to as Planet X and these brown dwarf stars coming in that would definitely cause the populations of the world to probably panic if they would, you know, start to see these objects clear as a bell in the skies above. Mm-hmm. And then all hell would break loose. You know, we are already seeing massive amounts of riots occurring all around the world. They're occurring here in the United States, over in France. I mean, I've seen them everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, is this what we are going to be faced with? You know, I mean, the days of governments telling the truth, I guess we're never going to see that. No. We will probably never, ever see the truth. We will probably never hear the truth. Mm-hmm. So we are basically in a battle for truth. Yes. A battle for knowledge and trying to find out, okay, well, what's going on? Why are they doing this? And little by little, we are finding out. Now, this portion of your report, Doctor, this figure 7, I wanted to go ahead and get into this because this definitely looks very interesting. And as your first line says, very sinister.
It is very sinister. So this is the third reason that I think they are putting these chemicals in the atmosphere. And that is because they make the atmosphere more conductive. So easier to turn into plasma. So because you realize that when we have a lightning strike, the air lights up because it turns into a plasma. It turns conductive. It's conducting electricity. Now, the more metals you have in the atmosphere, the more conductive it gets. And the easier it would be for lightning bolts to transfer through the atmosphere. So they are actually making the atmosphere more conductive on purpose because it makes their plasma discharge weapons much more effective because they need a conductive atmosphere to be effective. Now, where do these plasma discharge weapons come from? Actually, they came up with them in the Star Wars program. And they have ground-based stations, and they operate them from satellites. So they use it to destroy asteroids, like the one that hit Russia in 2013. So yeah, they use these plasma discharge or laser weapons. They're similar in many ways. They just produce different frequencies of light. And they can be used to, of course, destroy the factories in China, because you can just blow up any area you want on the face of the earth just by using one of these weapons and aim it at that area. And if you sometimes you can take ground station plasma discharge weapons, and if you superimpose two beams, so if the two beams intersect in a certain area, the explosion can be so great it will look like a nuclear explosion, or it will be just as strong.
My God.
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons why they're doing this. Now, these weapons use the microwave range of a wavelength. So they are electromagnetic waves, and here in the diagram you see the electromagnetic spectrum. Visible light is right in the middle and is what the human eye can detect. Ultraviolet light is above that. It's more energetic, and that's where the ozone layer comes in. Infrared is below visible light, and all objects above 0 degrees Kelvin emit infrared radiation because any molecules or atoms that vibrate emit infrared radiation. And any amount of temperature will cause these particles to vibrate. And then above that comes the microwaves. And these microwaves are part of actually the radio waves. Or some people would say they are between infrared and radio waves. And these weapons use these frequencies to form their beams. And it's also used for cell phone communication. And if you think about it, cell phones are part of what they use as well, or they use to hide the fact that they are using so many microwave radiations for different things. So, and then the fourth one is that they actually can be used as mind control weapons on the population. And first of all, it can be used to track us because we have all these metallic particles all over us because it's in the atmosphere. So we're breathing them in, we're ingesting them through our food, and they are on our bodies. So they can, some of these satellites and the AI technology they have in them, they can track you by looking. Okay, if we scroll down a little bit more, I explain that further down. Okay, that picture is the asteroid in Russia that got hit by, it could have been either a plasma discharge weapon or a laser beam weapon. They work in a similar fashion. All right, so every human being has a specific electromagnetic signature because different parts of your body will emit different frequencies of radiation. And so every human being is slightly different. So they can find out who you are by figuring out what your electromagnetic signature is. So they use satellites to track you. If they somehow know where you are, they can find you and look for you and look for your signature and therefore track you that way. They can also use it to transfer ideas into a person's mind. So there will be a microwave beam going through the area where you live, and they can interact directly with your mind and put ideas in your mind. Or you can actually see a picture because they have plasma inside the beam. It holds a plasma. Some people call them plasma orbs. It's entrained inside these carrier beams, and it can come right up to you, or it can go into your TV and put subliminal images in your brain that way as well. So how do we protect ourselves? I didn't mention before the ozone problem. The way we protect ourselves is we cover ourselves up as much as possible. We stay indoors as much as possible. So we have to cover our skin as much as possible. Wear glasses that block UV radiation, sunglasses, to protect our eyes. And this is basically what we can do. We can start growing some food indoors, like sprouting and things like that. That may help get some food that has not been damaged by UVC radiation. And then how do we protect ourselves from microwave, from these this tracking technology and mind control technology? Well, microwaves are reflected by aluminum foil. So we could, if we find out where these beams are coming from, put aluminum foil in strategic places. And space blankets also reflect these beams, so wrapping ourselves in one might help. But the mind control is really bad. They can actually torture people. They can, these beams can be so strong that it causes an impulse in the brain that causes you to pass out or even die. So these are the kinds of things. It's quite sickening what they are being used for. I think, I mean, obviously they are destroying the whole planet, but to most people that's obvious because what they are spreading in the atmosphere is obviously poisonous. But it's sickening what they're destroying the planet for. They are destroying it so that they can have their weapons, and then they are using it for mind control, which is just, to me, just totally a disgusting need that they have, and that they are doing this, destroying every living organism on this planet for their own sick purpose.
I'm just speechless. I'm just speechless. And ladies and gentlemen, just thinking about what the doctor is saying, they have the big seed vault. The big seed vault, what is it, in Norway or Sweden?
Yes.
This big seed vault that they have every plant and vegetable and fruit. They have all of the seeds for all of this plant life stored away in the seed vault.
Yes.
So therefore, if you wanted to take down your enemy, the mind control, the physical part of the human body, breaking it down, then breaking down the food supply, these would be ways to basically dispose of your enemy over a period of time where it really wouldn't look like an attack, like Pearl Harbor or bombing a city. But really what they're doing is a slow death, because they can destroy all of the plant life, the vegetables and the fruit, the trees and the plants. But they have the seed vault. So they can replant everything.
That's right. I think they are planning to destroy most of the Earth's population, and then they think they can restart. They would have to replenish the ozone layer. Maybe they're planning all this. So basically, the 7.2 billion people that are on Earth are the enemy, and they're out to destroy us. And then they're going to start again with just a few. And I think that's the plan. It's horrible.
What is that? Their so-called, what is it, 500,000 or 500 million? What is it? On
500 million. They want to keep it under 500 million. So that would be the maximum that they would want.
Wow. So it sounds like the powers that be, the elite, are literally playing God.
That's right.
That's who they think they are. So, Doctor, I see that we're at the bottom of your report, and in conclusion, you have 4 main reasons for this so-called geoengineering. You want to go ahead and go over that?
Okay. Yes, I can do that. So the first reason is to hide the objects surrounding the sun. The second is decrease the Earth's population. The third is to make directed energy offensive and defensive weapons possible or more effective. And the fourth is to place the surviving even the current population under mind control.
Well, we've definitely heard about the mind control issue and situation. I mean, I've read about it. We know for a fact that the U.S. military, time and time again, has, we've seen a lot of the mind control psyops that have been conducted for a long time. There was an article that I was reading, about a year ago, and it had to do with these cell phone towers and all of these new, all of these new devices that were being placed on these cell phone towers, and then these smaller cell phone towers. They weren't very high. They were actually, kind of short if you think about a cell phone tower. And all of these devices placed on these towers, they were transmitters.
Mm.
But it wasn't to transmit the cell phone frequency from what I was reading. These small cell phone towers, per se, were being placed in every major metropolitan city in the United States.
Yes.
And it was found through this investigative report and the information that I read is that these transmitters were able to transmit massive amounts of radio frequency, high, intense radio frequency onto a city population.
Sure.
And intense levels of radio frequency on the human brain causes serious upheaval and violence in the human mind, therefore provoking individuals to riot and become very violent. So the basis of the article is, why were all of these radio transmitters with very short towers placed in all of these metropolitan cities? And listen, ladies and gentlemen, if I should have had a picture of one of these to show you, and I'm sure you've probably seen them around your cities and towns, and they're not there to help your cell phone strength. They are there to be manipulated at a moment's notice, and that radio frequency turned up to turn you out. And therefore, the violence begins, and therefore, they have a reason to bring in the martial law and start to fight you in a war, an internal civil war. And if you don't believe me, start researching radio frequencies, high levels of radio frequencies, and what it does to the human mind. Look it up. You'll find it on Google. You'll find it on the internet. You'll find these reports. And when you read them, you're going to be shocked. And after you read them, take a drive through your town, take a drive through your city, and start looking for these short radio towers. They look like cell phone towers, but they're much, much shorter. And they have these kind of like gray canister type objects. You may see 3 or 4 of them in a cluster. They are not there to help your cell phone coverage. And you're only seeing these in city populations. If you go outside of the city into the country, you won't see them. But you will see them in big cities. I know it is happening here in the United States. And once again, we don't know exactly what they're able to do if they turn this up. If they turn it up to a very, very high level, what's it going to do to us? So, you know, there are a lot of questions that we have. A lot of questions. And as I've said before, this is the biggest cover-up in mankind, simply because they do not want you to know what is lurking within our inner solar system, what has been coming in for many, many years through multiple presidencies in this country. The fact of the matter is, They never wanted you to know what was happening because they knew that people would panic. So therefore, they had to have a plan. And the plan was scientifically to dumb down a nation, dumb down the world population, decrease the size of your enemy so you have an easier time to maintain and take control. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. We've already seen the documentaries on the FEMA camps throughout the United States. We know they're there. There's nothing we can do about them. There is almost nothing we can do about the current situation because we as a people do not have this massive technology. But we have to stay steadfast with gaining more and more information. This is not a joke. You can sit there and let other people feed you their bogus opinions, but the fact of the matter is, if you fight this dumb everybody down technology that's being committed against us, you'll find that your brain will work perfectly fine. Have a strong mind. Have a force and a will to survive and band together. The last thing in the world that they want to see is the human population coming together as one, regardless of your race, the color of your skin, your religion, your beliefs. They fear all of us coming together as one. That much is a fact. You know, I'd like to thank the doctor for her report and her analysis on this subject. And as I have mentioned, we could probably go on and on and on digging into the background of the chemtrails. But for all of us knowing how long they've been doing this, it almost coincides with the discovery from Dr. Robert Harrington, going back even further than that with the research of Carlos Ferrata and Herberculus, Planet X, Nemesis. The evidence was there, ladies and gentlemen. The evidence was there. They knew these objects were coming in. But going back 30, 35 years ago, maybe even 40 years ago, I don't think that they actually knew back then what they were getting into. But as time and technology increased, they knew. They knew and they started finding out. And therefore, that's why we have all of these big disinformation campaigns. That's why systematically they have tried to destroy YouTube channels like mine and many others. They don't want the information getting out there. But you know what? We have an ace up our sleeve. And we're not going to be utilizing YouTube much longer because they've already, like I said, they've already destroyed my YouTube channels. The views on the videos, even though I know that tens of thousands of people the videos, they don't show the numbers under my videos. It's all manipulated. They don't want anyone to really have a large playing field where you can reach the masses. But we're formulating something right now. It's going to take a little bit of time, a lot of effort, and it's going to take some money. But we have ways around most of it. And we're going to get it done. Myself, and the doctor, we're going to be teaming up to take the nation by storm. That much is a fact. So hopefully in the very near future, you will see both of us in a city or a town near you having live conferences. And we are definitely looking into putting together a book deal where the doctor is going to be writing about a lot of her research and her background. And this is going to be one of the ways that we're going to use a lot of things to our advantage, because they cannot control who comes to see us in person. They can control who sees this video and in what country. That much is a fact. So hopefully within the next few months, we're going to try our damnedest to organize a lot of this. And we only hope that you have our backs. You, the people that support us and support the information, you all need to have our backs. And I know each and every one of you that stays behind me and stays behind the doctor, I know you have our backs. And I've mentioned before many, many times, I wish there would come a day that I would be able to meet all of you, because you've all been so very, very supportive of both of us. But that day of meeting us may be coming very, very soon. Doctor, any last words for everyone? I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. They love your voice.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for giving me again the opportunity to talk to the people and tell them the truth, even though it's sad. But I think the truth, it gets to the point where it's a matter of survival, because obviously they are trying to destroy us and destroy the planet, and we need to know about their plans, and we need to know what time it is, and of course we need help from our Creator. So that is my message.
Well, it's definitely a beautiful message. That much is for sure. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, I know a lot of you. I know a lot of you saw the photographs that I posted in a video late yesterday, and another one earlier this morning. These are absolutely incredible photographs, and we're getting a little bit of help right now from a gentleman who is into astrophotography, and he is trying to clear up and clean up some of these photographs. And I'm going to check with the doctor here, and maybe in about an hour or so, or maybe tomorrow morning, we'll see. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to do another live stream, and I'd like to go over some of these photographs that we had come in that were already cleaned up and sharpened, so everybody can actually see that we're not joking around. We have the photographic evidence. This YouTube channel, these two people, we have the evidence that there are other substellar objects in our universe, and they are affecting the sun. We really need to get into a solar report here very soon, because I was just listening to a solar report and going over some information for the upcoming days and weeks, and we have some very serious activity brewing on the sun as we speak. There is so much happening. It's happening so fast, so quickly. There's not enough time in the day.
Yeah.
But if you see a live stream pop up, well, you know, Doctor, what do you think? I mean, how's your schedule in the next hour? Do you think that we could do another live stream and show these photographs?
Yes, we could if you'd like.
Okay.
We could do that.
Yeah, we could do that. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream. I have a few phone calls that I have to make that are very, very important. But we're going to put together another live stream in an hour from now. And we're going to be showing more of these photographs, and we're going to be showing them in very good, crisp detail. There is no, that is a lens flare. That is a camera artifact. That is a refraction reflection. Sorry, that's not going to work. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you happen to miss the next live stream, don't worry about it. These live streams are turned into a video, and you could always go back to the Nibiru channel or the Planet X News channel, and you could always view these live streams whenever you want. So please, by all means, make sure all of you stay tuned. And listen, I wanted to mention something else. For all of you that have helped financially with your donations and your contributions, it is greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. I wish I could thank each and every one of you in person, but as I've mentioned, those days may be coming very, very, very soon. And I'd love the opportunity to shake each and every one of you by hand, give you a big hug, and meet you in person. Those days are going to be coming very, very soon. This is Scott from Planet X News and our rogue physicist. Thank you for watching.